Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that is finally getting to the end, seeing out the year 2020. My name is Tosin. I am your host, and I am based in the Midlands, somewhere near Birmingham, in a small town called Bromsgrove, in the lovely, safe embrace of Tier 3. Joining me on the Isle of Wight, as usual, a place that has done a crazy jump from Tier 1 to Tier 4, just out of...
In a week.
Yeah, is Sharon.
Hello.
And somebody who managed to escape the Isle of Wight because he couldn't stand that horror, you just couldn't stand the Tier 1, couldn't you? You couldn't stand the Tier 1, so you decided to go to somewhere else that has ended up in Tier 4, has been exactly the same as the Isle of Wight. Isn't that right, Sean?
That's exactly right, Toad, and that's exactly right, yeah. Yes. Hello, everyone.
Right, yeah, so you're joining us from Bournemouth this week.
Indeed.
Yeah, and so in the UK, in the last week or so, I mean, I don't know, I've lost track of all time. In the last week or so, they have revised where everybody is, what levels different people are to do with coronavirus restrictions. And let's see, if you were in Tier 1s or 2, cinemas could remain open. If you were in a Tier 3 or anything higher than that, cinemas had to be shut. So the upshot of that is that this week on the show, Netflix vs. Cinema, we actually have films to talk about that we saw in the cinema. And I think Sean and I might get in there, watch a film before everything promptly got shut. So now that's it. I think pretty much the entire country, you can't go to cinemas anymore. But before we get onto that, this has been a mental year. Usually when we come up to this, we talk about, what was your favorite thing about this year? What was your crazy... And the fact is that this year has been so all over the place that I really cannot remember anything. So what I was thinking... Oh, sorry.
I can't even remember. Yeah, no, I can't even remember what day it is. I get all mixed up with the days, and then everyone else. I was like, well, what day is it today? It's only Tuesday, isn't it? Now it's Wednesday. Oh, right, okay. It's just it's mad.
Yep,
mad.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So we are recording this on New Year's Eve. We have, as we speak, about 6 hours of 2020 left. 6 hours, and then 2020 is off, and then 2021. We'll see what craziness you have in store for us, And I was just thinking, like, film-wise, when you guys look back on 2020, what do you think? What will you think? What will you remember this year about film-wise?
Everything being postponed.
Yeah. I mean, I remember...
Anticipation and then postponement.
Yeah, I remember Bloodshot. It was just me, and I took Jennifer, the Chinese assistant, to see. I think I remember that. And then watching that, something I wouldn't do is I went and watched Bill and Ted. So I remember those two, and but I can't even remember when they were. But, yeah.
Sharon, you were saying postponements. You remember the postponements?
Yes, I remember what I was anticipating seeing, and then I didn't see it because where we had my birthday was at the beginning of the year, just like yours was, Tosin. So yes. I remember I had a lot going on early on in the year, so that was like jam packed. And I went to quite a lot then. I remember seeing Emma, which I thought was a very good Jane Austen adaptation.
Was Little Women
in the year.
Little Women?
Little Women was out. That was I think that was Christmas time into the new year, because I think I saw that was the crossover film last year.
Yeah,
that sort of starts in one year and then carries on into the other.
It gets released in America before the end of December because of the awards run. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I did see Little Women, and so they were quite a good start. And David Copperfield, I think, was at the early part of the year, or was at the end of last. Anyway, there's like these sort of crossover films, so they were quite good. And then when we had the cinemas sort of reopened again, but with social distancing, I managed to get a few in. So I did get to see Tenet.
Oh yeah,
Tenet, sorry.
Tenet, yeah.
And which was the biggest film, I think, of the summer. And then I also had the opportunity to see some of the ones I probably wouldn't have seen, like Saint Maud. I probably wouldn't have seen that, but where we had like such slim pickings. I mean, that was on the cinema for much longer than it probably would normally have been.
Yeah,
it's probably one of those films that would have been maybe on a smaller screen for a week and then disappeared, but it's on like the big screen for a month. So I got to see that. And Proxima, There's a few I saw in the Pinocchio I quite enjoyed. So yeah, I did see some in that gap when we had cinemas here. So
Yeah.
there were some good films in there. Obviously, it slightly would have gone under the radar, I think, in previous years, but
Yeah.
because of the way things were, they
Uh,
have their own.
I'll tell you what, I am really, really intrigued. I am so intrigued to find out what's going to happen when it comes to the Oscars, because they're still doing the Oscars next year. And I'm thinking, what are you going to... I know they came up with some weird rule, but at the same time, I'm thinking there have not been that many films released between last Oscars and this Oscars. So we're going to see some weird... I think we're going to see some weird results, and I think we might actually see some deserving results, because the sort of
Won't
big...
be the big hitters.
Oh yeah, the big hitters, the big ones that are released, and you can see that they're released purely to serve as Oscar bait. Those films we're not really getting, so it's quite funny, because I'm looking back on this year, and I'm just kind of like, this has just been a weird year. And it's a year. I think when I think back on this film, I think it would on this year, it will even though it feels like a film. So like when I look back this year, I think for me one of the things I'm going to remember is realizing why cinemas are needed, or realizing the difference. Because I know when we started up this podcast, a lot of thing was like, oh, is cinema dying? Oh, will TV take over? It's so much more convenient. You don't have to find a time and all. And there are all these things that we're looking at going, oh, these are all the reasons why Netflix is... it looks like they might win this thing. But I think this year has sort of like has shown to me there is cinema has a place, and cinema is still kind of like the premier level of film viewing stuff. And and I think that's what I'm going to remember from this year, because I remember when cinemas first stopped, when we couldn't go, and I pretty much just stopped watching stuff. I stopped watching stuff.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, there's podcasts, and there's movie podcasts that I usually listen to, and I stopped listening to them because I'm like, what are you going to talk about? You have nothing to talk about. There's no films being released. There's no films being released. So there's even times like, I know we didn't do this podcast for like a month. A part of that was me thinking, we don't have anything to talk about. What are we going to be talking about? It's like, there's no cinema. What are we going to do? And I think this year has sort of like just showed to me the height of why you need cinema. Because I went to see the first film I think we're going to talk about is the one in cinemas, the only one in cinemas that I think Sean and I watched, which is Wonder Woman's 1984. And I went to watch that at my new local cinema, which is a View. I haven't been in a View in years, and A View have this advert with John Boyega, who obviously most people know from the Star Wars movies as Finn from the new Star Wars movies. Yeah. And they have this thing where he's talking about it, and he's talking about all the fact of, this is where you want to be. You want to be seeing something on the huge screen. You don't want to be watching it like this. And then they have like, a shot of somebody looking on a phone. You don't want to be watching like this, someone on a computer. You don't want to be watching it with any distractions. And it's a really, really well made ad. And I was actually getting a bit emotional as this thing was going on. I was like, yeah, you want to watch it on a big screen. You want to be watching the cinema. You want to be in the cinema. But in between, I had in a short period of time, probably in about 5 minutes, I had like, oh my God, you're in the cinema. This is great. This is where you want to be. And then I also had that, oh my God, I remember what the problem with cinema is. Number one, other people. Because I went to the cinema, as I was walking to the cinema, it was in a shopping center, and I just kept seeing people without masks on. There were people just sort of walking around without masks. There was a couple who were going to the cinema who go into the lift with me without a mask on. And I feel like, and obviously I am projecting what I thought was going on, but for me it was kind of like, we're on a date. No, a mask is going to cramp my style. I'm not going to wear a mask. So they didn't wear masks. They worked up into the foyer of the cinema. In the foyer of the cinema, there were people without masks. And then in the cinema, there were people who I guess were using the excuse of, oh, I'm eating, therefore I can't wear a mask, but weren't wearing masks at all. And I was just so sat here going, oh, because we were in tier 2, which meant cinemas could stay open. And I just remember sitting there going, oh, we're not going to be in tier 2 that much longer. We are not going. If people are being this blasé and being this cavalier about it, we are not going to be in tier 2 for much longer. And and then there were people there who are also people, did the whole thing of not watching the film, and then somebody moved from his seat wherever he was to come sit right beside another group of people, which I'm like, well, that is a social distancing.
Yeah.
No social distancing, no masks, and then they started talking loudly while the film was going on, and I'm just kind of like, ugh.
Ow.
I was really lucky because I was looking online and it said, I mean, the Cineworld at Poole is shut, but I looked at the Odeon one and it said we will honour any Cineworld Unlimited or any Cineworld card holders will get in at half price.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's good then. And also it was the iSense, which I think is Odeon's equivalent of IMAX. So it was a huge, massive cinema. Yeah. There were a few people there, but it was just big enough that you could have loads of space. But no, you know, with me, I was looking because like the middle ones, right smack bang in the middle, obviously taken. And but I managed to. So I mean, I was really lucky, and I had my mask on. But there were people that didn't have their masks on, and I actually heard and it was miles away. Isn't it funny when the thing started? I could hear somebody eating crisps. But anyway, that's another thing. There was a few, very, very few people in there.
Yeah.
But I tell you, when the thing started up, like you were saying about, and it was going, because of course the sound was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it got to the trailers, and honestly, guys, my tears were.
Yeah.
I was thinking, man, I have missed this.
Yeah.
I was really, really, really super. I was welling up with the sound. Bum, 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 bum. I know it wasn't that music, but that sort of, you know, with the welcome to cinema.
Yeah.
And I thought, mate, I've missed this.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with you. I was the same. I was just sitting here going, oh, you know what, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the adverts for the trailers were like, I mean, normally you moan about the adverts, but it was like, oh man, it's great.
It's big.
It's big. Oh my word.
It's big and it's noisy. How cool is that?
Look at the size of that eyebrow. So yes, 2020, and a crazy year. It's affected everything. Has affected cinema, which we love, and we don't know what's going to happen in 2021. We don't. I know some people seem to think, oh, we got a vaccine now, therefore we can do whatever the heck we want. I think that there's still a way to go.
Yeah. My mum had her first vaccine jab.
Oh.
She was one of the first to get it on the island. So, well, within the first day or so, there's three of the ladies in my church have had the first jab. So, mum had hers, and so it started to roll out quite rapidly across the island.
Yeah. Well,
so who knows what the next step will be?
Who knows?
So. But I was thinking, it's like we've had our millennium bug. It's just 20 years late.
20 years late for the millennium bug.
That's
exactly
actually
right.
true. That's actually true.
Yeah.
That's actually true. I think. Oh my word. The millennium bug could not have caused this much disruption. I do not think it could.
I was thinking, because it's the New Year's Eve today, and I was thinking it reminded me of the Millennium Eve, because I was working all throughout those Millennium Bank holidays because of my nature of the job then. And I remember going to the supermarket on Millennium Eve and it was empty. And I went to the supermarket tonight to do my little bit of shopping and it was empty. There was like half a dozen other people in there. And it just reminded me of that walking around this empty supermarket before the millennium, because everyone was thinking, oh no, this is all going to kick off, which is why I had to work every bank holiday.
Yeah.
And it did. But now I'm thinking we did get our millennium bug. It's just 20 years late.
20 years late. Right. So shall we talk about some films? Talk about some things that we have seen in the and we've mentioned it, and I think that's probably about the only place that we can start, which is the big. I think Sharon, you mentioned Tenet earlier, and the longer the year goes on, the more I feel thankful to Christopher Nolan. Whatever you think about his films or not, the more I feel thankful to Christopher Nolan for actually having the balls to release that film in a year like this. And the more I'm like, yeah, well done, good on you, Christopher Nolan, that you actually did that. And I think I feel the same thing about Warner Brothers and Patty Jenkins for releasing Wonder Woman, because it was the film to see this Christmas. It was that they were like, yeah, we don't care, we're releasing it. There's a window, we're releasing it. And I'm really, really happy that they did this. So this is Wonder Woman 1984, the sequel to Wonder Woman, which was released 3 years ago. And I think it's a film that has largely been disregarded. That's as in Wonder Woman was largely regarded as for like the only good thing in the DC extended universe for a long time. For a long time, it was like, this is the film that justifies the existence of the DC extended universe. They've done some other ones that, in their way, work. I mean, Aquaman was quite good, but Wonder Woman was it. So Wonder Woman coming back and doing, but this time having it being set in 1984, and I think, Sean, like, you were saying about being emotional about being in the cinema and watching this film. It was almost kind of like, we don't care what this film is. It's in the cinema. We're gonna. It's great. It's brilliant. It's on the screen in the cinema. It's great. So the storyline is that it's not 1984. We all know how. We know Wonder Woman, Diana Prince, is pretty much immortal, and so she hasn't aged that much. She's been around since the First World War. It's now 1984, and it's all about. But the setting of the film, it seems like the director, Patty Jenkins, has quite a lot that she wants to say. She wants to say, because of the whole capitalism thing, about the whole what I want is what I want, or worth more than what everybody else wants, and all that. And I think the character of Wonder Woman is a very, very good character to look at these sort of issues through the lens of. So, I mean, I think I thought the film went on quite well. I thought at the beginning of it, the way it sort of kicks off, and the sort of heart of the film, and the lack of cynicism, I think, from the film, it reminded me a lot of the first two Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, and it made me think, man, I just wish Patty Jenkins was in charge of the whole DC thing, because I think some of the other DC films that we have been directed and have been made and have been written by people who do not understand the superheroes, and I think Patty Jenkins understands Wonder Woman a lot, and she doesn't think that the idea of fighting for good is cheesy or anything like that. She's like, no, Wonder Woman stands for these things, and does quite well. But anyway, enough of me prattling. Sean, what did you think of the film?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I have to agree. It was lovely to see. It was yeah. I mean, I thought it was a really, really good film, and I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I did have a few issues with it at the end.
Yep.
I could do a whole, like, I could probably do about 7 minutes spoilers about the stupidness of the plot towards the end. But I think I still enjoyed the film, so that didn't detract from my enjoyment. But I didn't get too angry. I didn't get too much on my horse, because there was a lot of action. It was quite fun and all that. But I thought, oh, that's bloody stupid. You know what I mean? And I mean, it did send the old alarm bells ringing. And I figure the last half an hour, 20 minutes of the film was just like, well, I can't, it's only go, if you can say it, I don't want to put spoilers, but it's only going one way. What about all the other people that would be, do you understand where I'm coming from?
I think I understand where you're coming from.
You know what I mean? Let's say, like, I don't know, so there would be a contradiction in terms, you know what I mean? It sort of would, because there's as many people that, shall we say, are, not particularly nice, but there's loads and loads of nice people as well that would be thinking nice things. So, and that I thought, it just, that to me, it just didn't, but I still enjoyed the film. Yes. Okay. But you understand my...
I understand. Haven't seen it. I understand what you mean. Anybody who's seen it and listening to this will understand what Sean is talking about. And obviously, because Sharon, you haven't seen it, and we are doing our very best to not spoil this for you.
Not spoil it.
Not spoil it for you. But okay, a big part of the plot of this film, and I think it's something to do with Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman essentially lives in the realms of the gods. So So in the first one, there was a lot of stuff where she was trying to find Ares, the god of war. And so in this one, there is this whole thing about, I can't remember what they call it, but it's like a wishing stone. And about, you have Pedro Pascal playing a character called Maxwell Lord, who is like this big 1980s capitalist guy. He has adverts on TV. He tells people to invest in his business because he's going to go find oil. And he's like, he has some catchphrase, which is like, you can have anything you want if you want it hard enough, or something like that. Like, very 80s. Think Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. It's very capitalist, very 80s. And I don't think it's, essentially, let's put it this way. He finds this ancient artifact, which he finds a way of using to turn himself pretty much into a genie. But he uses it for his own, and it's all about, and then the film becomes a lot about greed. and it becomes a lot about greed and how in the 80s greed kind of took off, and then using the whole sort of, it becomes a moral fable, and using the whole sort of superheroes, gods, or to examine what is the natural outworking of people's greed. So people just sort of say, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Where does the world end up? And and so what Sean, what you're talking about, it does. I agree with you that the last half hour of the film, you kind of start going, ooh, and it's when you read a comic book, there's sometimes when you read a comic book and then you might read the title, and there's times when it goes along quite logically, and then there's some bits where they go for some big out there ideas that they just throw at you in the comics, and the last half hour of the film goes big and it goes out there and it goes, whoa, what?
But to me, this is, and I mean, it's come back. We've had this conversation countless times. Is that in the Marvel universe, little things are thought about, whereas that's why I was saying, like with the story, with the screenplay of the last half hour, I don't think it was really given some thought. I understand why it was coming from, and I understand that, but I just like, you know, that.
Okay, I'll say okay. And
I didn't like. I must say, I didn't like. What's the guy's name? What was it?
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah. I didn't think he was particularly good.
He plays the role. I mean, I think I read somewhere someone says he plays the character very broadly, so there's nothing subtle about that character whatsoever. There's nothing subtle about it. It's very, and essentially, let me put it this way: when they were making this film, you can so see that Patty Jenkins had Trump on her mind. So,
yeah, I agree.
You can totally see that she had Trump on her mind. And there's so many things in this film that are essentially going, you're watching it, you're going, yeah, that's Trump. Yeah, that's Trump. Yeah, that's Trump. Oh, we have a businessman who's a television personality who ends up in the Oval Office and ends up standing in front of a White House thing, telling the whole world that they can have whatever they want if they just want it hard enough. You're like, yeah, that's Trump. And it's so you can see that she has stuff on her mind, and there's a bit where towards the end it might get a little bit preachy. It get a little bit preachy, which I can see could rub some people off the wrong way, but I can see what they were trying to do. But I made my notes. I said opening scene. The opening scene, it kicks off on Themyscira, which is where the Amazons live, and it just makes you. I don't know about you, Sean, but I was like, man, I don't like it when they try and make all these sort of spin-offs and all that kind of stuff. But I really want to see more of the Amazons on Themyscira. I want to see.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, I agree. It totally set you up, didn't it? It was. Yeah. I mean, it totally set you up. I thought, whoa, this is. Yeah. I mean, it was great. It was great. That was probably the best bit of the film.
Yeah, the opening scene of the film is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think, and some of the things that I thought were really brilliant about it is, number one, getting to see an action sequence that is built and it's just all women in it. I thought that was awesome. And not only that, but it's centered around the young Diana Prince, which means that it's a young girl is at the heart of this massive big action sequence, and it is awesome. Opening sequence, I absolutely loved it. And if I think they've made rumors that they want to make more stuff on Themyscira, and I would be there for it. Patty Jenkins has stuff to say. It's a moral fable. The film is too long. The film is about 2.5 hours long, and I would say it is, as Shona said, it's probably about half an hour too long. I love Steve. So somehow they bring Steve Trevor. That's Chris Pine. They bring him back from the first film, and everybody knows it's not a spoiler to say the dude dies. The dude dies in the first film. So how is he back? Oh, they figure out a way around. They bring him back in.
Yeah.
But the dynamic between him and Wonder Woman, I love the dynamic between him and Wonder Woman, because the number of times when you have an action sequence where in the foreground you have her being all flawless and look at her, she's amazing, and in the background you can see him being all labored and trying to fight with one guy, and in science he's taking out 7 people. He's managed to take one guy out, and I actually really, really like that thing. With Kirsten Wiig. You haven't said anything about Kirsten Wiig, and
no,
Kirsten Wiig, who plays the character of Barbara Minerva, who becomes the cheetah. And I didn't like this bit of it because I felt that it's been very, very often done in superhero films, especially where you have a character that starts off as a dork and ends up like, as kind of like, ooh, evil
Yeah.
person. So it's from the same book as Jamie Foxx's Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he's like, it starts off like, oh yeah, if he wears glasses and if he has his hair somewhere and if he's like, in brackets uncool, then oh yeah, that's, and I'm like, I don't like that. I've had enough of that. And Kirsten Wiig is essentially the same thing, where she starts off nobody pays any attention to her because she wears glasses, because she's dorky, because she wears sensible shoes, and she ends up being this sort of like, and as much as I do not like that trope. I do not like it.
No. I must admit that bit in it. I mean, I really like Kirsten Wiig. I've liked her in most films she's done.
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree with you, Tosin. And as
I think she's. I think she's brilliant in this. I think she plays both sides, and the transformation is she's really believable. She's way better than Jamie Foxx was. I mean, I'll put her closer to like the Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. Michelle Pfeiffer going from Selena Kyle to Catwoman, and that sort of transformation. It's very believable. I just do not like the trope. Sorry, Sean.
No, that's okay. That's cool. No, you're exactly right. I agree with you on that. I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But there hadn't been the transformation as well. I wish she maybe would have stayed with the powers, but without the transformation. But I think that's in the trailers anyway. So
the final transformation. I mean, it's everybody knows she plays a character called Cheetah. There is a massive cheat to make her into the cheetah.
Yes.
If you pardon the pun, there's a massive cheetah to turn into the cheetah, and I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, please. There's two words. There's two words that she said. Like, even as she was saying them in the film, I was like, don't say those words. Don't say those words. And then she was like, I want to be and then she said it, and I was like, oh my god, no.
Oh my goodness me. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's two words to do that, and there is. Let me put it this way: Wonder Woman has a vehicle. She is famous for having a particular vehicle in the comics. And that vehicle shows up in the film. Anyone who's read it, and there is a bit of a cheat to make that vehicle show up in the film. It's nice, it's cool, and for people who know Wonder Woman the comics, it's kind of cool, but it's a bit of a cheat. And the final thing I had to say was that Patty Jenkins has obviously seen and loves Superman 1 and 2. So I'm talking about the Christopher Reeve Superman 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Because there's a load of bits in this film where I'm like, yeah, that's a Superman 1, that's a Superman 2. She obviously loves that. It's almost kind of like it's
bit of a homage.
It's a total homage. Oh, and there's a cameo. There is a cameo in the film that people of a certain age will love. Will absolutely love. Some other people will not understand what the heck's going on. But there's a cameo in the film where the girl was like, oh, okay. I like that. So, okay, all in all, I think we've blathered on about Wonder Woman 1984 for too long, but hey, it's the only thing in cinema we're talking about. So let us. And I think I would give it a 3 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed it. I did think it was too long. I see what they're trying to say with the sort of moral fable thing, but there's some bits where you're like, really, you're doing it that well? That might be a bit cheesy. I feel like it just about stays on the right side of cheese, just about. So I would give it a 3 out of 5.
I would say, yeah, and I would totally agree with you on that one. I'd have to give it a 3 out of 5. It was entertaining enough. I was pleased to be back in the cinema, and yeah, it was good. Agree with you. Half an hour too long, and the ending was like, that. As I say, I could do 7.5 minutes on one of my rants on that. In fact, I probably will. Like I say, and I got rants that I should just give to you, Tosin.
Yeah, you should start recording it. Sean's rants, a special sort of like side podcast of Sean's rants.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's us 3 out of 5. Sharon, you have sat down quietly and patiently watching two old men rant. So we will open up the floor to you, and we've done the only thing in cinema this week. Take us to one of the things you saw this week that you would like to talk about on At Home.
Well, shall I match it with a film that I've seen then? Okay. So I saw one of the bigger releases over Christmas on Netflix, which is the George Clooney film.
Ah, yes. Midnight Sky.
The Midnight Sky, yeah. So I sat and watched that on one of my quieter days. So the basic story is there has been some kind of apocalyptic event on the planet, on Earth, and majority of humanity has died. and there's a few pockets of clean air. There's some things happened with the air quality, and people just can't. It's become toxic. And there are some pockets of clean air, and they are in the poles, in like the Antarctic and the Arctic Circle, and in some remote sort of weather stations. And there are plans to sort of try to evacuate people from Earth. And this is set in the year 2145, so it's in the future. And parallel to this story of like this apocalyptic event, an extinction level event on Earth, there has been a space mission has been sent to one of the moons. I think it's of Jupiter. I was just trying to think. It's gone out of my head. Which they believe is habitable. It's got a close enough proximity to Jupiter to have its own gravity. It's shielded from the sun. It's got, anyway, basically they believe that it is habitable for human life. And so there was a mission was sent there to just basically to check it out.
Yeah.
And so whilst they are unaware, the people who've gone on this mission are unaware that there has been this event on Earth. And so you have these two stories running parallel to each other. You have one of these areas that was evacuated and was a weather research station in the Arctic. And George Clooney is one of the scientists there. And he basically predicted many years ago that the world is not heading into a good place, and that they need to start making plans to do things about it.
Yeah.
So he's like the inspiration behind some of this deep space exploration. And he decides that he's terminally ill with kidney failure and other things, that he was going to stay behind and man this research center for as long as he possibly can.
Yeah.
And if necessary, be one of the last people left on Earth. And so he decides to stay. And all the time he's there, he continues to sort of work and monitor and other things. And they have very powerful sort of transmitters and receivers. And this Jupiter space mission has been trying to contact Earth for a long time, and they're not getting any response from any of the space stations. They've tried NASA, they've tried the European space, they've tried China, Russia, and they're not getting any response. And the only person who's actually responded to any of their calls is this deep space weather station. And they finally get in contact, and he explains to them what the situation is. And they then have to make a decision as to whether they continue back to Earth or whether they turn around basically and then head back to Jupiter and hope that some of the other sort of shuttles and things that have launched to try to get there will get there with them. But it's something like a 4-year journey. To get there. So it's the odds of humanity's survival is stacked against them. Then there are other subplots and lots of other subplots, but basically that's the thing about it. It's like it's the end of the world as we know it.
Yep.
That's a famous REM song.
Yes. And it's a sort of starring and directing George Clooney. It reminded me in some ways of his take on Solaris. I
was going to mention that. We must have a tune. We must be attuned there, Sharon, because I was going to say Solaris.
It had that feel about it. It's sort of underplayed, even the dramatic, and there's drama and there's highs and lows and dramatic events. Even those that are played out, they're in that sort of slightly understated, underplayed. All the drama is underplayed. There's no sort of like histrionics or that big emotive scenes where everyone's sort of like hysterical and crying. There isn't any of that. Everyone is pulled back.
Yeah, quiet.
Just like Solaris was. So if you want your big science fiction, then this is not it. But it's more like that Ad Astra, that Solaris, those sort of self-contained, controlled sort of dramas.
Yeah, I get you.
That wants you to think about what's going on. I don't know if it's as deep as it thinks it is, a bit like Solaris, but it wants to provoke you to think, where are we, who are we, what are we doing here, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And what would we do given those circumstances?
All right. Yeah, because
so there's a number of subplots that are interesting and that again are revealed at the end, and there's sometimes you don't know what's real and what's not. But there's drama and elements of surprise to it.
Well, we all know that George Clooney he's an activist, and he has this whole thing, and it was shown. I think we've spoken about it before in the past, where he seems to do. Even, was it you or was it my brother I was talking to? He seems to do. I'll do one big sort of blockbustery thing because then I'll get the money. Together. Then I'll go away and I'll make something interesting.
make something for. But yeah, I mean, he's done that a lot. I mean, Good Morning, Good Night, and I don't know, he's done some really, really good political stuff.
Syriana. He did.
Syriana. That's the one I was trying to think of. I was going to say something else, and I was kind of thinking of Munich, but that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Syriana.
Oh, Michael Clayton.
He did Good Night and Good Luck, didn't he?
Good Night and Good Luck. Yeah, that was class.
But
like you say, also I think with those when he did those coffee adverts, I figure that was just probably to get some money in. A bit like Anthony Hopkins. I don't know if you might not remember this. Do you remember the Anthony Hopkins advert where he goes, "And my salary big"?
Yeah, that was Barclaycard. Yeah, it was took a Barclays bag, and it's like, oh, I know George Clooney with his like Nespresso. What else?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you get the feeling that he's working with Netflix to make this one, and you get the feeling that he's done that deal because they have that freedom. I think we've seen that, haven't we? It works better in some cases than others. We've said that if you give a director a lot of artistic freedom, then they seem to go nuts. But you get the feeling that he has made what he wanted to make. This is his vision that has come to the screen. So.
He's very thoughtful. I think he's very, very thoughtful.
He is, and he campaigns a lot about the climate change and all that.
I always remember. I know this is going off on one of my tangents, but John Lydon, he did everybody said, "Oh, he's sold out," and he did like the Country Life butter or something.
Yeah,
butter adverts. And I saw an interview of him. And he said, "Yes, I did them, but I needed some money because I had this musical project, and I had no money basically. So I did that. They gave me a whole bunch that he could do stuff, a musical project."
Oh, that's the Sex Pistols, Johnny Rotten guy.
Yeah, Johnny Rotten.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's a good supporting cast in this as well. So obviously George Clooney is front and center, but he's an older, slightly grizzled George Clooney, big grey beard, and sort of obviously not looking his silver fox best. And then you've got on the spaceship, you've got David Oyelowo as the captain. You've got Felicity Jones as like one of the science officers. You've got Carl Chandler as one of the people in the mission.
Oh.
Then another two crewmates who I don't know. So there's an interesting mix of supporting actors, and then you've got a few thrown in there, but mainly most of the cast, it is basically the 3 or 4 people that you focus on, and then people sort of come in and out of that. They're the sort of sphere of those sort of people, but the main principles of these sort of two worlds.
So all in all, if you're going to rate it, what would you give it?
I would probably go high with this one because it's a sort of science fiction that I do like. I do like the sort of poppy, bangy, splashy science fiction, but I also do like the ones that they use it as a means of telling a different story. So I quite like those ones where it's like a parable almost. And so I would give it a 4.
Oh, give it a 4. Give it a 4. So did you compared it to Ad Astra? Did you like Ad Astra?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, because that was the kind of film that. Yeah, because that was the kind of film that I could look at and I could say, I can see why some people would hate this film.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. yeah.
I was like,
and Interstellar in a similar way, that sort of science fiction that it's what we used to say when we described parables. It's like it entertains at the front door while the truth slips in the window. And so it's one of those films where you think, yes, it's entertaining at the front door, and then it wants the truth to slip in around the side.
I like that saying a lot. Right, Sean, we will go to you. Sean, do you want to pick something from the other things you saw at home this week?
Yeah, I've seen a few things. I mean, I could go through the whole lot because I'm probably catch up with some more, but we could talk about The Terror, I suppose.
Okay,
The Terror,
cool. Yeah.
Netflix. Okay, this was a series, 10 episodes, and it's basically there was this expedition to find the Northwest Passage, and it's these 2 ships.
Oh, this is Kieran Hines, is it?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. And
Franklin. Is it Franklin?
Franklin expedition, where they go across they want to find a Northwest Passage across sort of the Arctic. And it starts off, it's these 2 ships, one called the Terror, one called the Cerberus, and these 2 ships. And basically one of them sort of gets caught on an iceberg, so it gets a bit stuck and has to be prepared. And the captain of the Terror says, well, why don't I take all your crew and I'll go on. But the captain that's in charge, the one on the Cerberus, says, no, we managed to get through. So anyway, but they get stuck in. So they get stuck in. They get frozen in. They can't get out. They try all different ways to try and get out the ice. And then they find this. They accidentally shoot this Eskimo, this shaman. One of them, they think it's a polar bear, so they shoot him, and they try to save him, and his daughter's with him, the shaman's daughter, who's an Eskimo, and they find all these like charms on him, and he's got no tongue, but they can't save him. And she says, the daughter says, I've got to take care of what's it called? It's called something anyway. There's some sort of creature.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, they say don't worry about it, and they sort of chuck this old man, the shaman, down an ice hole, and then the beast comes. The beast comes and sort of causes a bit of havoc, and they wonder what the hell it is. So, and in all this confusion, the daughter escapes. Anyway, cut a long story short. So what you've got these two ships that are stuck in the ice, and there's been this incident that has happened. So they go on a little bit of a hunting party, and again they get sort of attacked, and then and it just goes like this for a while, and then the captain that's in charge of the one in the Cerberus, he gets killed by this sort of creature there, and there's a lot of interaction with the crews there, and they decide that they're going to try and send out patrols, so they load up the lifeboats with. This is over the series, by the way. This isn't one I'm getting sort of. This is how it moves.
It moves. Obviously, yeah. So can I just ask a question? Is this one of those shows where it's kind of based on true? So you know how you have like a true life thing, and they'll say this thing actually happened. These people went off somewhere, and when they went off somewhere, we're not sure what happened. So someone now writes a piece of fiction that sort of fills in the blanks and says, "Ooh, whoever knows, these people disappeared. They were got by the Wendigo or something like that."
That's it, exactly right. Yeah, because this was an expedition that no one, nobody ever found, and they did find. Apparently, the thing is, after watching one of these, you do some research, don't they?
Yeah.
And when they did try and find these wrecks, and they actually found a couple of bones where there were some knife marks. So obviously they had it, for food and that, because the tins get all lead poisoning. So but as it moves on anyway, then there's a little bit of a mutiny, and you get the two groups. So you've got two groups, and in the end they decided to totally abandon the ships, and they go off their separate ways, and there's bits in between. So I think there's a few flashbacks as well to times when, like in London, they're talking about the expedition. My feelings on the whole of this is I thought it was brilliantly acted.
Yeah.
I thought it reminded me of the cast from Game of Thrones. I don't know why. I was just thinking, I reckon they've just taken you guys from Game of Thrones and thrown you in this. So that was my thoughts. And I have to say, I think the acting was first class, absolutely first class. It's not particularly, I wouldn't call it horror. It's not particularly horror, maybe a thriller. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we know what you mean. Well, I know what you mean.
And and I thought this was first class. I mean, I know it's a few years old now, and if I watch like the first episode, I watch the first episode. I thought this is really, really interesting, and it's again, that's one thing I was thinking of. The authenticity just feels so right, and when they've got the bodies, I noticed that when the bodies are sort of lied on the ice there, and they've actually got the brogues on, the proper brogues, the proper shoes. There's the square bits across that, and I thought someone has totally, absolutely done their research on this. The vessels are right, the clothes are right, everything about it smacked of authenticity. It was absolutely brilliant. As I say, acting first class. A really, really top show. And I wouldn't have really thought much about it. I thought I'll watch the first episode. This is probably not going to be that good. And I just got sort of drawn in and ended up watching it. I think Sharon I think you'd like this, Sharon. I do really think you'd like that.
I'm aware of it. I haven't seen it, but I'm aware of it because there's a series of books about it as well that you can.
Yeah, I think this is probably based on a story. But
all right, I'll tell you what. Right, I'll tell you what, Sean. If I ever, or if anybody, if anybody comes and asks me, like like a filmmaking world or anything like that, saying I want to do something a bit period, I want to make sure I get it right. There's two people who I'm going to be. Okay, I need to go speak to this person because he's going to be the person sat in the cinema going, "What the? How very dare you? That person has the wrong fingernail on. They didn't have that nail polish in 1952." And there's two people. And number one, it's you,
Mm-hmm.
and superfan Nina.
super fan Nina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
her husband Will is the second person because you're the detail-oriented people who would be like, no, 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 no. If you're gonna do it, get it right. You're good.
That's it.
So yeah, so how many stars would you give the Terror? Because I think that's the first season.
4-star.
Okay.
4-star.
4 stars for the Terror season 1.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It was good. And as I say, I actually recommend this to Sharon. I'm always a bit like nervous about recommending things to Sharon because I know, but I think you'd like this. I think this would be right up your street because, as I say, it's not horror. It's not horror.
I don't dislike horror.
No, but it's.
I have watched the odd, schlock, but
yeah, I know.
I tend to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going from
interesting.
something that you do not dislike, Sharon, to something that we know you do dislike. But well, no, actually, I have 2 things I could speak about. There's 2 other things I've seen that I could speak about. One of them I know you definitely do dislike. It is the new Pixar movie, Soul. I know. You can't see it, but Sharon has just done an I'm melting. She's just done like, she's recoiled like that. And the other thing is the Mandalorian, which is, and I think I'll actually go with the Mandalorian, which is on Disney Plus. These are 2 things I saw on Disney Plus. The Mandalorian is the big Star Wars TV show that they have. I know that Sean, before the first lockdown hit, you said one of the last things you saw in the cinema was the first 2 episodes of the Mandalorian that were shown on a preview screening.
Preview screen, yeah.
They were shown on a preview screen.
Right, yeah.
And I remember that at the time when you saw the first 2 episodes of that, you said, and I was, because obviously I was still in my whole railing against the rise of Skywalker and talking about how I was done with Star Wars and all that. And I remember asking you something along the lines. I was like, "Oh, do you think it's right?" And you were like, "Oh, so much better than the rise of Skywalker." And I was like, "Yeah, but that's only 2 episodes of like an 8-episode season." Wait, and I remember I decided to start watching it because we finally got Disney Plus on the TV, and I was like, "Okay, let me see what this is all about," because I'd seen a couple of storylines or headlines that were talking about the Mandalorian, so I knew something big was happening, and eventually it was going to become a spoiler for me if I waited long enough. So I decided to start watching it. And I have to admit, I watched the first 5 minutes of the first episode, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is already better than the Rise of Skywalker." In the first 5 minutes, I was like, the first 5 minutes, it's cohesive, it holds together, it draws you in, you're intrigued, you're like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen next?" And I was like. And I remember a friend of mine, he's based in the States, he's based in California, Simon Edward Spartan. And Simon, he put up on Facebook, he was like, "Oh, why couldn't this be the sequel trilogy?" And I have to admit, The Mandalorian is something that I was done with Star Wars. I was ready, like anything that they said Star Wars wise, I was ready to be like, "Don't care, not interested, go away, just not interested." And The Mandalorian has gotten me interested again. I have to admit, it has gotten me interested again. Because
have you seen both? Have you been seeing both?
I've seen both seasons.
Yeah,
I've seen both seasons. I've seen season 1 and season 2 now. And I've seen both. And it has gotten me interested again because I think it is the focus on character. It is the focus on the world, and I like it. I love the fact that I think I love the show when the show is focusing on things that we haven't already seen in the Star Wars universe, when it's not talking about if the words Jedi, Skywalker, Death Star, if they don't show up, I am really, really happy with the show because it's actually exploring the universe and it's exploring what else could be done in this Star Wars thing. And it's not this annoying thing the way you have a whole universe but everybody knows everybody and everybody's linked to everybody, everybody's somebody's daughter, and everybody is none of that rubbish. And I love although the fact that the show is set 5 years after the Return of the Jedi means that you do know Luke Skywalker's out there somewhere, Han Solo's out there somewhere, Princess Leia's out there somewhere. You know these things are there. But I love it when they don't focus on those things. I love it when they're just going off and they're showing you what more could be done in this world. And I think there is a thing called, even if you haven't watched the show, I'm sure, Sharon, you haven't seen the show, but you have heard.
No, I haven't seen it.
You must have heard of Baby Yoda.
Oh, yep, I've seen and heard of Baby Yoda.
Yeah, you must have heard of Baby Yoda. I mean, the fact that the show was released in America like 3 months before it was released in the UK, and you could not move because everyone was talking about Baby Yoda. So that, and I think you can see all.
Is it actually Yoda, or is it just the same species as Yoda?
It's set 5 years after Return of the
Yeah.
Jedi, which means Yoda's dead because Yoda dies in Return of the Jedi.
He's
Yeah.
actually got a name. He's actually got a name.
Yeah, he's got a name in the season 2, but we don't want to spoil that.
No.
Yeah, we'll let somebody else on the internet spoil that for Sharon.
Okay. All right.
yeah, let someone else on the internet spoil it for Sharon. And it's yeah, and it becomes that you can see all these different influences, all these different Western influences that come into the show. You can see all the sort of like different, because obviously Akira Kurosawa in Japan was a major influence on George Lucas for the first Star Wars movies. And you can see influences from Japanese cinema that come into like the central thing of the Mandalorian walking along with Baby Yoda. That's Lone Wolf and Cub. If you ever seen it's low, and so you could see that one particular episode is pretty much a remake of Seven Samurai.
yeah. It's actually when it is. It's you're right. It's
yeah.
So it's definitely influenced by that. But what's interesting, each episode's done by different directors, isn't it?
Yeah. Each episode's done by a different director. Yeah, and it's a varied group of directors as well, which I think but I think Jon Favreau, who is the one who created the show and he's in charge of the whole thing, he's someone who I think I really, really rate him. I mean, I really rate him.
Highly.
There are some things that he does where it's kind of like for instance, when he did the Lion King remake, I think that was more of a technical exercise to see whether they had the technology to do something than it was actually telling a story. But every now and then, when he sort of drills into the story, it's like, this guy, I'm here for it. There's bits in season 2 where they start doing the bits that I don't like, which is where they start trying to link it a bit more to the Star Wars story that we already know. And there's two characters. In the final episode of the season. The final episode of the season, there's this big moment that if like online, people are going, oh my god, the final episode of season 2. And I saw all these headlines before I watched it, and I was like, I think I know what's going to happen here. I was like, I think I know what's going to happen here. And I don't think.
Have a conversation. With someone just before Christmas. I met up with our friend Kevin, who's you knew him from our film quiz days.
Yeah, I know Kevin.
And he was saying, he was saying to me, you need to watch Mandalorian. He said, especially there's one scene, he said, that brought a tear to my eye. And I think it's the scene that you're talking about. He said, I genuinely just teared up at that point. And I don't know what he was talking about. I've got an idea because I've seen a post that I don't think I was supposed to see, but I saw it and I was like, I wonder if that's the moment that Kevin was talking about.
Yeah.
But he said, he was welling up at that moment. So that probably is that moment that you're referring to.
Yeah, I wasn't welling up. If that's the moment I wasn't welling up. So,
I know it was a bit.
Convenient.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, convenient. When things are convenient, you know what I mean. It could have been done slightly different. But did you say? But you on about that? Did you see the post-credit scene of the last episode?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So I wonder where that's going to go.
Yeah, I wonder where it's going to go. And I saw the post-credit scene, which involved another one of those characters that they brought back, and I was like, why?
Yeah. Why would you do that? I know what you mean.
I was like, you had built up such good credit with me. I was loving this whole thing, and then you had to go make the world smaller again. Why is the world so small? No. And so I'd say I really, really love the show when you're going off into sort of areas that we haven't seen before, where you're going away, you're not being beholden to slavishly follow something that we've already seen in the Star Wars universe, which is one of the big problems I had with The Rise of Skywalker. And and I think it's brilliant. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. We'll see.
Definitely, I would. I think the first. I agree with you. I think the first series was better than the second series. They're both good, but I think the first series was, like you say, there wasn't. Although this stuff was going on, I know what you're talking about, the convenience of the second series. You know.
Yeah.
What did you think? What did you think of the Super series? What did you think of the Super Trooper type things?
Oh, the Dark Troopers.
The Dark Troopers, that's it. That's the ones I was trying to think of.
The Dark Troopers. The Dark Troopers.
The Dark Troopers, yeah.
I thought it was. I thought it was good because I think the thing is, there's things that they've done in The Mandalorian that there's questions they've had about the Star Wars universe, like the stormtroopers, they're rubbish, aren't they? And there's some
Yeah.
bits where there's some bits in the show where they directly address how rubbish the stormtroopers are. It's like there's one character that they go, oh yeah, he used to be part of the Empire, and they go, whoa, well, you're a stormtrooper. He's like, don't you dare call me a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
He was like, don't you dare call me a stormtrooper. And it's so I mean there is bits. I think story wise, I like the first season because it doesn't go close to what we already know.
Yeah.
And but I feel like the second season is a bit more confident. Like because there's a bit more points to where it's going, because the first season was like, it was almost kind of like an anthology. Every episode is like a different thing. It's like, oh, and this week he gets into this scrape, in this week he gets into that scrape, and it seems to just follow this thing where he wants some information. He's trying to find some information. The person is like, I have the information you want, but before I can give you the information, you must go do this thing for me. Then he goes into another script that nearly ends his life. But I really do like the world building they're doing in the Mandalorian. I like the background they're giving you on the Mandalorians, on Mandalore, on all these different places, on what happened in the fallout after the Return of the Jedi, where it's like you think, yeah, we destroyed the Empire, yeah, everything is happy. It's like, no, who's in charge now? Oh crap. And I like all that stuff. So I think that the show does really, really well. I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree. 4 out of 5.
Okay. So Sharon, you got one more thing to tell us.
Well, I've got 2 that I've seen, so I don't know which one you want me to do. There's
it's the end of the year. What are we gonna do? You can do them both.
Okay, I'll do them both, but I'll abbreviate them both then. The first one then, as it's sort of in that sort of world, I'll go with Raised by Wolves, which is a science fiction drama that's been on Sky, and that has suddenly been, all of the episodes have been uploaded, so you can binge watch it as a box set. And it is about the world is set in the future. We don't know when, but hundreds of years in the future. The world has been riven by religious wars. There's a new world religion called the Cult of Mithras, which is an old Roman religion, where it's all about the sun and about the power of light. And there's lots of imagery in it that, if you know about Mithras, it sort of would resonate a little bit. But anyway, there's the Mithrathians, and then there's the atheists. So basically, if you're not part of Mithras, you're an atheist. And these 2 combatants have been fighting it out and basically been destroying each other to the point almost of the end of humanity. And they have built these arcs where what's left of humanity, so much so, Battlestar Galactica, has been sent off into the universe to find habitable planets. And one little pod has been sent out, which has got 2 androids on it. They're sort of like cyborg androids, so they're like humanoid, but with these heightened abilities.
Yeah.
They have been sent out with some human embryos, and they have landed on this planet, and their task is to be the mother and father of humanity. And so they are just called Mother and Father, and then they have all these children. And so they gestate. The mother basically her body is like linked up to these little pods, and she basically helps to gestate these little embryos.
Yeah.
And sort of raise these children. And whilst they're on this planet, they're raising these children. Some of the people from the Mithras cult have arrived, and then there's this conflict. Yeah. And then you get these, as a season, there's 8 episodes. As a season progresses, you flash back and forward between the battles, where they are now, what's real, what's not real, who's good, who's bad, and then your perception is like turned on its head basically every other episode. Some people you think, oh, they're obviously the bad guy and they're quite evil, and then the next episode they do something and you think, okay, so they're not the bad guy then, and they're not evil, but he's the bad guy and he's evil, and then it's like, okay, no, so he's the good guy, and so your perception is constantly changing, and your understanding of the world and your understanding of the past and people's places in it is constantly being reevaluated and changing.
Yeah.
So I can't really give you a lot away because you are off balance nearly all the way through it.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
But it's interesting, and then because you've got this sort of religious theme running through it, each of their cultures has like prophecies about there's a prophecy about where the humanity is going to go. There's going to be a leader who's going to be an orphan child who is going to change the world, and then you get introduced to a character and you go, oh, that's obviously who the prophecy is about. And then someone else is introduced, and then they fit the bill as well. It's like, oh well, maybe they are the blonde, and then there's not, and so there's 3 potential people, and then everything gets twisted around again. So you're constantly off kilter with it. So again, it's one of those. It's science fiction, but it's with a twist. So it's interesting, and it kept me going for the whole 8 episodes.
All right.
But you can't really describe it in a way that would be coherent, because either in some ways it's not always coherent in its storytelling.
I've heard that about it. And just before I ask you how much what you would rate it, because the basic premise of it made me think of I Am Mother, which was something that Sean and I saw on Netflix. Yeah, about essentially an android raising a kid because humanity has done blah, 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 blah. And so whenever I see something that reminds me of something else, I always kind of go, I'll leave that for a while before I watch it, so that I'm not just being totally judgmental and comparing it all the time. But but what did you think? Because I'm guessing Raised by Wolves, I'm guessing that's a reference to Romulus and Remus from, what is it, Roman myth?
Yeah. Yes, so yes. So there has nods towards antiquity in some of the stories and some of the things, and you're never quite sure what is going on really. But I did enjoy it. I'll definitely give it a high 3. I don't think it goes as far as a 4, because there are elements of it I'm thinking I just haven't got the thing, and I didn't really want to give it that much attention to work it out. If that makes
I hear you. Yeah.
Because sometimes you think I could unravel all this if I paid a lot of attention, but I just want to watch it, and eat, the non-creams out of the quality street, basically. So for those tweeny days between Christmas and New Year, it was fine. But if you want to give it a lot of attention, you could probably get more out of it. So I'd give it a high 3, but it wouldn't quite go into the 4 for me.
Oh yeah.
And so quickly moving on then from that, unless you've got any questions about Raised by Wolves.
Nope, no, carry on.
I'll quickly whiz through the next one. This is completely sort of out there, and I think we have reviewed today, and that's a drama called Bridgerton. And it's a Regency set sort of romantic drama based on a series of romantic novels by a novelist called Julia Quinn, and they're all of the 8 novels are about the 8 Bridgerton children, and the first novel is based on a book called The Duke and I, and it's the story of Daphne Bridgerton and Simon Hastings, the Duke of the title. And so it's Regency set, but it's basically not the Regency as we would know it. It's a Regency I would say the way the film has been done, the television drama has been done, is that it's like an alternative history. Because in this history, a king at some point in the past has married a black woman, and there's a black queen, and because of that influence, they have ennobled a lot of people from very different disparate ethnic backgrounds and from different cultures. And so you have a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural society.
I like it already.
So the Duke of Hastings is black.
Is it like a sorry, go on. Yeah, no, carry on, Sharon. Sorry, mate.
So then you have some of the Lady Danbury, who's like his godmother is obviously of African descent, but you don't know quite when. But she was ennobled, and so she's a noble woman in her own right and have her own influence. The Queen is black in this, and so she has her own influence. And so it's set within what's supposed to be the Regency period, but then obviously it is not, because you do have various different sort of ethnic and cultural references. So if you want a historical drama, this isn't it, but it is a romantic fantasy.
I was just going to say, is it a bit like I imagine? I mean, I'm just having a look. I've sort of just had a look at it like that. Reminds me of one of those ones like Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility, but with a bit of a quirk on it.
It's with the quirk and the sort of the war factor is ramped up to 11.
Sharon.
As in the novels, as in Jane Austen, if you look at that sort of Regency novel, it's about manners, it's about dress, it's about class, it's about gender politics. There's layers to that. Jane Austen, people think of her as being like a romantic novelist. She's not. She's razor sharp in her observations.
It's a satire, yeah.
And there's full of satire, and often characters are drawn are caricatures of the worst aspects of society. So you've got that, and then you've got sort of like romantic fiction, which basically likes the dresses, it likes the empire lines because it's a bit sexy, and it likes the men in their tight breeches and their boots because that's a bit sexy. And so they go, you know what, we're going to make this, Bridget Jones, but we're going to set it in the 18 teens. Right. Okay. And that's exactly what they've done. So it's all a bit racy, and the novels are basically very racy. I mean, I've read a couple of them but they got to the point where I'm thinking, I don't think I can read this without.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's if you like your romantic fiction to be, with the four factor ramped up,
the grey factor,
and you like to see, your buttocks and your nipples, then this is the film for you, really. Because it's got all of it in there.
And she's just great.
So yes, if you like to admire the male and female form, then fill your boots.
Totally unshockable Sharon. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah, and so there's an interesting twist to it, because you do think about sort of racial politics, and you do think about some of the gender politics. There's a very controversial scene in this, which was lifted from the book, about who basically, about sexual consent.
Yeah.
But done in a way that you think it looks like it's part of the sort of romantic drama, but actually when you unpeel the layers, there's actually quite a serious question there. Yeah. But on the whole, it is the lighter end of sort of that historical romantic fiction. But in my teenage years, we used to call them bodice rippers.
Yeah, bodice rippers.
And now I think it's got the nickname sort of lady queen. I think it's
it's bodice rippers. They'll be like, it was Regency period. They didn't have TV, so all they could do was have sex. So,
yes, whenever, and whenever. Yeah, under the
So okay, so Bridgerton.
A lot of that.
Yeah, you said a lot of things that made me wonder about it. Like I was like, this looks like a sort of pseudo Jane Austen kind of thing. So how many stars would you give it?
I would give it a 3. I know I've seen sort of fan fiction about it already, and I've seen these fan videos on YouTube have been appearing. So it's obviously adored within a certain demographic. So if it's in your demographic, I'd say you'd probably love it, and I know people do love it because I like my Jane Austen at the lady end rather than the lady porn end. So I would say for me, it's not quite my cup of tea. It's entertaining, and if you just it's like it's got a shapely, well turned ankle, here and there. So there's something to admire in some aspects of it. But in other aspects, it's sort of a bit wincy. And so I would probably say, I would give it a 3 because for my personal taste.
Okay. I think you might be chasing Sean and I to go watch it just so we can sit down. Just so we can sit down and be like, oh, so Sharon, how about this bit? How about that bit? But I think that is intriguing. That is very intriguing. Okay, so Sean, let's get back to you. And I think you have one more thing to talk about, and series 4 of Gotham.
Series 4. Series 4. Oh my goodness.
Series 4.
Series 4. Yeah, I mean, Gotham, the first 2 series of Gotham, I really, really, really got into. I thought it was really, really good. Season 3, it didn't quite grab me the same. Perhaps I should go revisit it. But anyway, I started because I thought, what am I going to watch? I thought, oh, Gotham, because that's Netflix. I thought, oh, Gotham. I'll watch the series 4. And it got me right back into it. Into it. And I'm halfway through the last season now. But yeah, it really, really got me back into it. I thought, not every episode, but nearly all the episodes I really, really enjoyed. And I think with the character development, I think for me, I mean, the Penguin is just absolutely class. And I really love the way it goes. As I say, there a couple of issues maybe. There was a couple of episodes that went a little bit funny. But you've got all the traits and something's happened, which I can't really. The trouble is I can't saying too much without giving spoilers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I really can't give spoilers because there's a lot of things happen, a lot of things changes, a lot of the characters develop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. I know you can't say much, but I've got a question to ask about Gotham. Now, this is a show that I haven't watched, mainly I think because it's in the Batman universe. So we know it's in the Batman universe, but it's set before Batman became Batman. So you kind of know that at some point in the future of this world, Batman's going to show up. So, and for me, the problem I have with certain shows in those sort of areas is that it kind of determines some things for you before, like there's like a limit to how you're going to, like, for instance, if Batman is in this world, the Penguin, there's no jeopardy. He's not going to die. Joker, if he shows up, he's not going to die. All these different characters.
Okay, no spoilers.
Well,
this takes place in a totally different. Forget all your Nolan movies. Forget anything else. This is a totally different universe. Totally.
So it ignores all the canon. It
ignores all the canon. Yeah, it ignores all the canon. And it totally goes and how the characters develop. But yeah, that's interesting. I can't really say too much without giving away spoilers, but that's a really, really interesting take. And they're not allowed to call the Joker the Joker. I didn't realise that until I did something. So they have to call him what they call
the
him?
Smiler.
Jerome. They call him Jerome. Jerome he's called, or Mr. J still. But and in this series now you've got like your Harley Quinn sort of, or I assume she's going to be like a character, like a Harley Quinn character.
Harley Quinzel.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't really know the background story to her. She's just like an accompaniment. They don't say that's who she is, but obviously that's who she's supposed to be. And you've got your Poison Ivy, and you've got your Riddler, and you've got your Penguin, and a few other characters coming in, Ra's al Ghul, the Scarecrow. So they're all there, and I mean, I'm looking forward to finishing the series 5 because, well, I don't know.
So is it a bit like
Gotham becomes, should we say, it becomes isolated, and then you get these no-go areas, you get these haven areas, and Jim Gordon is, he's you can't call him a paragon of virtue. I mean, he's totally Jim. He's got super morals, but sometimes he has to, look things over or do. So it's not sort of black and white. Alfred's like a really, he's like an old SAS man who sort of, should we say, with Bruce. And Catwoman, you can see the basic story is there, like the relationship between Batman or Bruce Wayne and Catwoman, because they're roughly about the same age. Yeah. And although she's not like horrible now, she's just like a little bit of a cat thief and that, but she, So you've got that plot going on. And then the end of series 4 is really, really good, and you think, oh no. So as I say, I'm halfway through season 5 now, but I think it's great. It's just totally drawn me back in again. So
okay, cool.
So yeah, I'm gonna give it a good 4-star.
All right. Good to hear. Because as I said, it's something like there's something about TV shows set in the Batman universe that I don't like. Like there was a TV show Batwoman as well, and there was I saw
Arrow. Is Arrow linked into that? Well,
Arrow isn't necessarily the Batman universe. No, Arrow is DC, but it isn't the Batman. It's its own kind of thing. So yeah. Sorry, Sean, you were going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say actually. On about that, I know we're talking about the Joker. I must have watched that about 4 times now. It's on Sky at the moment, and it just gets better and better and better and better. And that's probably going to be one of my top films of all time, I think. It's just brilliant. Anyway, but let's go back to the Gotham thing. Yeah, to me, this is a whole totally different universe to anything else. So, it's and I really like the take on it. I really, really do like the take on it as well, because it's, they haven't really got, although the 4th series, there's one that's got sort of superpowers, but they're not really, really superpowers as stuff. They're more just characters. Do you know what I mean? They haven't got, they're either really clever, or they got a lot of muscle, or they got, but there's no, the way of things.
I totally understand. They didn't have the budget for superpowers. So they... All
Can I
right.
just-
Yeah, yes, go ahead, Sean. Sean, yeah.
I was going to say, obviously, totally off at a tangent again, but I was thinking about, was it called Bridgerton that Sharon was talking about, the
Yes.
racy thing? Did any of you watch Black Narcissus?
Oh, you
I've
mean
recorded
do
it,
you mean
but
the
what-
original
The
or
TV
the one that's currently on TV at the
No,
moment?
the currently one that's on TV.
The new
So
one.
I won't say nothing. Then we'll do that. We'll save that until you've watched it then, Sharon. All right?
I've recorded. I wanted to record it so I could watch them all.
Watch the whole lot, yeah.
I've watched them a whole lot. So
Okay,
Great.
all right. In
We'll
that
do
case,
that. We'll do that another time.
okay,
Yeah.
in that case, Black Narcissus. We'll do that first show of 2021. I'll get Black Narcissus on. I will go watch that as well then so we can have a proper ding dong. And
Have you seen the original closing? Have you seen the original?
I haven't seen the original. I know it's Powell and Pressburger and all that, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
No, is it? Yeah, it is Powell and Pressburger. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
check
those
that one out as
saturated
well if you
colours.
can. If you do, I mean, you may not have time, but if you do, get a chance to check that one as well.
Oh,
Contrast and compare. Contrast and compare.
I found okay, Sean, you're infecting me. I'm going off on a tangent. I found I recently got this thing called a Google Chromecast with Google TV that you can attach to your TV, and it turns your TV into a smart TV essentially through your HDMI thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has all these different apps on it because it's and there's an app called Old Movies. I think you can download it on the Android App Store. And essentially, Sean, I think you would love this because it says Old Movies. You click on there, and it just has all these films from like the 50s, 60s, 40s, and you can just click on it, and it will just play for free. I think it finds them on YouTube, and it just sort of plays them for free. But anyway, never mind. Maybe they'll have Black Narcissus on it. So I'll find out. But final thing, let's go on to the thing that Sharon hates. Animation, Pixar.
Yeah.
So okay, this is the final thing. It's a Pixar's movie, which I believe was going to be their Christmas offering, but obviously COVID, no cinemas, so they just released it on Disney Plus. And it's one of these things. It's a bit like how with Disney had Mulan, which was going to be released earlier this year, and for them that was going to be the way they had Black Panther, and I think I always have to qualify these things and say for a Black American representation point of view, that was huge. And I feel like Mulan was going to be their thing that from an Asian American, like a Southeast Asian American point of view, that was going to be huge, and it got taken away. And Pixar have released Soul, which is the first Black main character in a Pixar movie. But obviously didn't get to go into the cinema. And this is all, and you can tell that they've put a lot of effort into making sure that they got this right. If you look at the end of the film, we're looking at all the advisors, and they have all these people that are known for being Black. Like they have Ryan Coogler, who directed Black Panther. They have Kenya Barris, who does the TV show Blackish, in there to make sure that they get this world right. And it's all about Jamie Foxx playing a character who for his whole life has wanted to be a jazz musician. His whole thing has been he's going to be a jazz musician, and he's been trying to make it big, like get a break. And when you meet him, the film starts off with him as a substitute teacher trying to teach an orchestra in a school. And so he's trying to sort of like conduct this orchestra in the school. And as you go on, you find out that this guy has never got his break, or something's happened and he's always messed up his break. Then he eventually gets another break. He auditions for like a jazz musician, and he gets the job. But on his way home, he's so excited about I've got this job. He doesn't look where he's going, and he falls down a manhole. So he falls down a manhole, and the next thing you know is that you see this sort of like floaty little blue thing, which is his soul, which is essentially saying, oh, that's it. And for a kid's film, it's kind of a dark beginning. You're dead. And it's about his soul in this sort of afterlife area where and he's going on to the great beyond. Like he's on this conveyor belt. He's like, no, I've just got my break. I've got to get back to Earth. And so much so that, and I think this is a kind of film that storyline I think was around a lot in like the 80s. In the 80s and the early 90s, somebody dying and going. I know there's Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty. There was one called
Is it Always?
Oh yeah, Always, the Steven Spielberg one. There's one with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. The first film I ever saw Meryl Streep in I think You Can't Take It With You or something like that, which is and it's that kind of, so it's all about him, this soul going, no, I can't do it. But in the world of this thing, they pair people who've just died with souls who are not yet born. And they sort of mentor them, and they sort of mentor the souls that you're born to sort of say, this is what you do. These are all the different things that are going to make up your personality. There's a joke in there that is, once again, a total Trump joke, which I thought was actually quite funny. And it's like about the souls before they're born. And they say once you get given your spark, then you can go to Earth and you can be born. And it's all about him trying to get back to Earth, but at the same time trying to sort of teach this soul something. And I think in the typical Pixar way, it goes into a sort of buddy movie kind of thing, where I think Pixar tend to do that with a lot of their films. It ends up being a buddy movie, and then they go on a quest to try and get somewhere. And I feel like the storyline is quite straightforward. The closest thing that you could probably compare it to is Inside Out, which, Sharon, I know you hate animation, but watch Inside Out. Get over yourself. Get over yourself and watch Inside Out. And it's Inside Out is better. Inside Out is better than Soul. But there are a lot of things that this has to say about, okay, what is it that makes us human? What's actually the point of living? Because there's a soul who has been around for thousands of years without ever being born. And they've given this soul mentors like Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa. and the soul has made all of them tear their hair out because they're like, why would I want to be born? Everything you say about Earth makes Earth sound totally terrible. Why would I? Yeah, and it plays with this whole thing about, okay, if Earth is so terrible, why would you want to live there? And why would you still want to be a human? Why would you still want to go from being a soul to being a... And I think it's really, really well done. I really, really like it. I think it does the whole Pixar thing where there will be at least one moment that makes you go... No, there's just something about all right. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. And so I would give it, although I would give it a 3 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed it. Really, really liked it. I feel like the storyline is a bit straightforward. It isn't top level Pixar because there's sometimes when you have a top level Pixar, you just think these guys are geniuses. I think with your Inside Out, with your first 3 Toy Story movies, there's just things with Coco. Oh my God, Coco. And Soul isn't quite up to that level. But it's not even up to the level of Onward. I would say it's not even up to the level of Onward. But I still really enjoyed Soul, and I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
So that's on Disney Plus. Duh. So I think that is everything that we have time for in 2020, the year that was. Whew, it was a crazy year. It was a crazy year. I think we still have some remnants of 2020 that we're going to be dealing with in 2021. Don't know. Well, as I said, we will just keep going, and we're trying to figure out exactly what is going to happen in the next year as we go along and see. Maybe we'll see cinemas. Maybe we'll see the same cinema chains that were there beforehand. Maybe we won't see them. Maybe we will never see some of these films that Sharon, you said you were waiting for. Maybe they'll never see the light of day because God knows what's going to happen between now and release dates. But anyway, until then, from Netflix versus cinema, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a happy new year and goodbye from me.
Yeah, man, it's a goodbye and a happy new year, everybody, from me. Let's hope the next one's better, eh? Happy new year. Forgot about that. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
You can hope.